Hello and welcome to Competitive Crunch. My name is Spade and this is a show which is not quite bite-sized. In Mr. Crunch, it is more powerful and super effective. And today I'm going to take a look at the Fairy type Pokemon of Generation 6, Pokemon X and Y, and more specifically all the fully evolved ones because they hold the most competitive relevance. And now, a few weeks ago, I did an episode on all the fully evolved Pokemon of Generation 6 in total, but I thought I would look at the Fairy types more specifically because it is a new type. But just saying that, this may be a bit of a repeat on that note, but I'll kind of just try to skip on all that. But Fairy type's definitely an interesting topic. It's a new type. We haven't had a new type. It's been like, what, 12 years or more, depending where you happen to live when you actually got the games when they were released. I mean, of course, Pokemon Gold and Silver has been... Since Gold and Silver, we haven't had a new type. That's when they released Dark and Steel types. And back then, Steel types were kind of supposed to compensate for dragons, because, you know, they had and they still do have the dragon type resistance, but it didn't really do much with the OP dragons that had awesome move pools to go around Steel types with EQs and Fire Blast and such moves. So now they released a Fairy type, which is again supposed to deal with dragons, and it definitely does. First, when it was introduced, it was specifically said that they are gonna be Fairy types are gonna be dragon slayers. Not exactly like that, but you get the point. And they were basically just supposed to be balancing out the dragons. Now, something that people were kind of scared of, well, if there's going to be a new type that's supposed to take a dump on the dragons, what stops that type from becoming the new dragon type? But after now playing the games, I must say Game Freak and Nintendo and the Pokemon Company, they have done a great job at creating this new type and balancing it out. And definitely, since it has been so many years, like what, 12, 13, 14 years, again depending where you live, it's been so long since they introduced a new type. Of course, I'm sure Nintendo and Game Freak, they were kind of scared of creating a new type after all these years, because they've had a good balance outside of dragons. They've had a good balance going on. So if they were to introduce a new type, they definitely had to think about it so that it wouldn't screw the balance that they had going on so far. But of course, they had to do something about the dragons, because they just kept on creating new OP dragons year after another, generation after another, and then they realized, oh wait, we created a bunch of OP dragons. We weren't supposed to do that, but we kind of did, because kids love dragons, and we have to create more OP dragons because everybody loves dragons. And then they realized, oh, we're kind of cornered now, we have to do something, and then they needed to create a new type, and they did. And here's Fairy. But when it comes to dragons, you know, like I said, you know, of course it could screw over the balance, but they have done a great job, I feel like, after playing the games for a few months now, doing a bunch of battles on Wi-Fi and also on Showdown. And I am currently on Pokemon Showdown. That's where I got this nice list of all the Fairy type Pokemon. Just typed in Fairy to the search bar. That's why I got the Arceus Fairy and Clefairy on the first. But anyways, on total we got like 36 Fairy types. So they made sure that they didn't want to create too many of them. And looking at the base stats, they are not really as overpowered as dragons. So they really made sure that this new type would not really be broken. So they didn't make all the Fairy types having super overpowered high stats like the dragons, and they didn't create too many of them because they kind of wanted to see how the new typing would do in the metagame, and perhaps in the future, now that they are able to gather all the data, I don't know how they actually do that. Maybe they see from their own tournaments that Nintendo holds and everything, but they wanted to make sure that they wouldn't just pull a dragon again and create too many of them and make all of them overpowered. But Right here, because I'm lazy, I'm just gonna throw this list right here. I don't want to do extra editing work, but right here I have the base stat totals of all the fully evolved dragons here on the left, and on the right got the base stat totals of all the fully evolved fairy types. And here you can see the comparison that basically dragons in all the ways possible when it comes to base stats, dragons are superior. And now that they created the fairy type, they made sure that they wouldn't make them broken as hell like they did with dragons, but they still gave fairy types the edge on the dragons, with the fact that fairy types are obviously immune to dragon types. But that is a great thing that they did, that they didn't make a new dragon type and they didn't create overpowered stats. And on that note, like, all the fairy types, they seem to exceed at special defense. There are a lot of new specially defensive fairy types, and offensively, like, if you compare to the one thing that made the dragons overpowered is that their offensive capabilities were through the roof, basically. And you know, they got 110 special attack when you count all of them together, and 116 attack. Holy crap. And just when you look at fairy types, only 71 and like 88, like that, it's pretty decent. But they made sure that they didn't create too many overpowered Pokemon like they did with the dragons again. But I thought I would just throw this in as a nice little extra bonus, and so you can kind of like see the overall comparison between the dragon types and the dragon type slayers, the new fairy types, of course. But now let's just go through this list quickly right here, and I'm gonna just kind of give my quick thoughts on all the fully evolved fairy type Pokemon. So we're starting with Arceus Fairy here on the list. Of course, you're gonna count it in because with the new, is it the Pixie Plate? It's able to transform into a fairy type Arceus, and I would imagine this thing could be, this Pokemon Arceus Fairy could definitely have some potential in the Ubers metagame, because you have a bunch of overpowered dragons over there, and then if you have something as powerful as Arceus with dragon immunity, I would imagine that being huge. But then again, Arceus is already so versatile. There are lots of other great types and sets that you can do with Arceus, so I don't know how well Arceus actually does. Arceus Fairy does actually in the Ubers, but I haven't really done too much of Gen 6 Pokebank Ubers to really know. But I would imagine that dragon type immunity would come in handy, especially on something like Calm Minding Fairy type Arceus. I guess that could be kind of cool with Fairy type Judgment. I don't know how Sword Dancing Arceus would work as a fairy type. Like, it would have that dragon type immunity to gain that momentum and gain a chance to get off that Sword Dance, but it doesn't get I don't think it gets like Play Rough, because that's currently, I believe, the only physical fairy type attack. So, like, I don't know how that would work out, but I'm sure Arceus Fairy will find its place, but it's overpowered already, so let's not talk about that anymore. And go through this list of the fairy types over here that are more relevant in the tiers below, in the overused tier, and so on. So, starting off with Aromatisse, and also I would kind of like to take Aromatisse with Florges and Sylveon, because all of them kind of have similar attributes. First off, they are all pure fairy types, and they are all quite specially bulky, have bunch of HP. All of them have kind of similar move pools that include Wish, and I think all of them also get like Calm Mind, but all of them also have kind of limited coverage moves. I think Sylveon is like the most versatile Pokemon out of the three, but even with Sylveon, it doesn't really have the best sweeping potential because of that base 60 speed. And yeah, all of them are kind of slow, Aromatisse being kind of the slowest one, but all of them are like really similar. And it's interesting that they created like 3 specially defensive fairy types that kind of just have the same role when it comes to their move pool. Then again, Aromatisse I think is gonna have like more usage in the doubles because of its ability Aroma Whale, because that means that Aromatisse and its partner cannot be taunted, and Aromatisse of course has access to Trick Room, so it's going to be a great Trick Room supporter in the doubles scene. But I think on the singles metagame, I think Florges and Sylveon are going to be having some great competition between each other. I think Sylveon is definitely going to be able to pass down some higher wishes, and I guess on the offensive potential, Sylveon is better, so that might be the tiebreaker right there, which makes Sylveon the more used, especially defensive fairy type. But I don't really know. But all of them, it's kind of interesting that all of them are so similar, and it's going to be interesting to see how they are going to be doing in the metagame. But at least in the singles, which I've been playing a lot, Aromatisse hasn't really seen too much usage. But I don't really know how well it's going to be doing in the doubles, but that's where I would imagine its highest potential is. Then we got Carbink, and you know, I kind of talked about this already, and it's kind of bulky, but it's kind of set up fodder. It's offensively, it cannot dish out any damage. Something like Aromatisse and Florges Sylveon could still do with like Stab Moonblast, but when you have a 50 special attack, you can't really do much with that. But you know, this thing can set up Stealth Rocks and dual screens and stuff like that, so that's where its highest potential really lies. But I think there's going to be a lower tier Pokemon. And then we got the Gen 6 Pikachu, and yeah, it's a Gen 6 Pikachu. I still have nothing more to say about that. Klefki, interesting Pokemon, Steel Fairy type, basically the new basically the new Steel Psychic combination with only 2 weaknesses in Fire and Ground. Of course, it does play a bit differently than the old Steel Psychic combination, but yeah, on that note, still 2 weaknesses, and this Pokemon has the Prankster ability combined with Spikes and Thunder Wave, really useful support moves that are gonna give this Pokemon some good usage, and it's pretty bulky. So again, definitely like a physical. Like a lot of people run the physically defensive Klefki that sets up a bunch of spikes and then is able to support your team with that priority Thunder Wave that could definitely make a difference when you're facing some OP dragons that are dragon dancing around, and then you can just go for the Prankster Thunder Wave first before they are able to destroy you. So Klefki, a really useful utility Pokemon. Then we got Slurpuff, which is kind of a weird thing. I don't really know much about this thing, but like I don't know if it gets like any good. It has some like decent bulk going on. Like all of its stats are like they're pretty good, and I think what makes Slurpuff kind of interesting is that it has Unburden and also Belly Drum, as I've learned. So you can combine with like Belly Drum, Citrus Berry, and that with Unburden, and then have Play Rough, and that thing is gonna be hitting like a truck, and it's gonna be outspeeding everything. So that's pretty cool. But that's where the fun pretty much ends, because outside of Play Rough, like it doesn't really get any good coverage moves. Like your best moves really are just like Return and Thief, and that really says something. Like Thief got buffed up in this generation, but still, like Thief and Return for coverage, like get out of here. That's horrible. But then again, as Game Freak created this combination of Unburden and Belly Drum, I'm sure that they wanted to do something that this Pokemon wouldn't be too broken if it would have great coverage moves with that. But like with its good natural bulk, I'm sure it will find opportunities to go for the Belly Drum, and coupled with Citrus Berry and Unburden, this could be really interesting a sweeper. But you know, its coverage is what really limits it. And Sylveon already went through that. Now Azumarill, one old Pokemon. I think this is one of the best fairy type Pokemon, hands down. This fairy typing for Azumarill just really changed it, and now, at least now, you have seen this Pokemon a lot being used in the overused metagame that we have going on at this moment. But the fairy typing gives it interesting new, well, immunity to dragon is definitely a huge deal. and all sorts of other resistances that it didn't have in the past. And also you got the Belly Drum Aqua Jet combination now that is legal with Azumarill. That has gained a lot of attraction for it, but definitely one of the better physical Fairies type Pokemon for sure. Azumarill right there. And then we got Togekiss, and with the Fairy Flying combination, type combination, it is actually immune to the dual stab of Garchomp, and we all know how dangerous the Dragon Ground type combination is, so having something that is immune to both of those is pretty huge, although Garchomp now tends to carry Stone Edge, more, kind of specifically for Togekiss. But definitely interesting typing. And we're gonna see how that's gonna do with Togekiss. Like it's definitely better than it used to be in the past, because it was kind of getting down to the lower tiers. Well, it was doing pretty good in the underused tier in the past, but now with the Fairy type, you know, it's gonna have a bunch of new resistances, immunities, and on that note, it's gonna change it, but it's still gonna be, I guess, mainly doing the Thunder Wave and the Thunder Wave, Air Slash, Flinch Hexing shenanigans, but definitely going to be interesting to see how it's going to be doing for Togekiss. Haven't seen this Pokemon, like, I guess it has had some decent usage, but definitely this type combination and the fact that it's immune to Dragon and Ground, which is a great coverage that kind of often destroys everything, is going to give Togekiss some usage. And then we got a bunch of unevolved Pokemon, and then we got Clefable right here, which is now a pure Fairy type, and I also believe that it got buffed up in the special attack apartment, and I think it was 85 in the past, and now it's 95, and I've seen a few Calm Mining Clefables already, and that's definitely a more potential set right now. And it can still be running like Bolt Beam combination. Those moves got nerfed, but now with Clefable's special attack buff, they're not really, you know, nerfed in that sense. But I don't know what I'm rambling. But Calm Mining said definitely an interesting choice still on Clefable. And now instead of being weak to like fighting, it now actually resists fighting, which is kind of huge for it. And yeah, Calm Mind. Clefable has a bunch of support moves, but I don't really know. We have those especially defensive supporter Wish Passers already in form of Aromatisse and Sylveon, Florges, so I don't know how Clefable is going to be doing on that. Because it's, well, Clefable is also quite specially defensive, but definitely Clefable has more offensive potential and also the awesome ability Magic Guard. So we're going to have to see how that's going to be doing for Clefable. Haven't seen that Pokemon too much, so I'm not going to be rambling about it too anymore. So let's just move on, okay? Then we got Whimsicott, which is now Grass and Fairy type. And first when Whimsicott was introduced in Generation 5, it was basically the poster child of the, at the time, new ability Prankster. It had all sorts of nice moves to go with Prankster, like Lead Seed and Substitute and Stun Spore and things like that. But outside of Prankster, it didn't really have much going for it, so I guess Game Freak kind of noticed it, that, you know, it wasn't really that good, so they gave it a Fairy typing to kind of buff it up, to give it some new potential, and we're gonna see, like, definitely the Dragon immunity again on something as defensive as Whimsicott is gonna be nice, and we'll just have to see how Whimsicott is gonna be doing with its new typing and Prankster shenanigans. And then we got, what do we have here? Gardevoir, I guess, would be the next one, being now Psychic and Fairy type. Also gained a new Mega Evolution. I think that's gonna be really interesting for it. I don't really know how the Mega Gardevoir is going to be doing. Definitely 165 special attack, and also higher speed is definitely great for it, but then again, you cannot really slap a choice item on it, so that's still kind of a problem. But one of the interesting things, once the Pokemon Bank gets released and stuff, we can have God of War with Hyper Voice, and Hyper Voice, of course, being a sound-based move, is able to break down substitutes, and with the Pixelate ability, you will have a powerful fairy type move that is able to go through subs. So that's definitely something really interesting, and with its high special attack and pretty good speed now, we'll have to see how God of War and Mega God of War are going to be doing. And this is actually now a God of War is actually pretty good. Could you call it even a counter to Latios and Latias, because you are immune to one of its stabs and you resist the other one. So that's pretty cool. God of War could actually do pretty well as a Lati twin check or a counter. It doesn't does it have wish or any other sort of reliable recovery? I'm not really sure, but still definitely an interesting Pokemon. And then what we got Grand Ball, which is now a pure fairy type. Grand Ball has been always this weird Pokemon. Nobody has really understood why is it a fairy type Pokemon. Like why? Because it has, or like in the past, it has been categorized kind of in the. Was it said to be a fairy type? Like, I think Clefairy is described as a fairy Pokemon, and I think so is Grand Ball. They like in the past they have still kind of fallen in the same category of being like a fairy Pokemon, but Grand Ball is like a dog, which has been really weird. But now it's a pure fairy type. But I don't really know how big of a difference it's gonna make for Grand Ball. Certainly it can be using that stab play rough, but still I think your main attraction as a physical fairy type is going to be Azumarill, and then the next Pokemon right here, which is Mawile, which is also now a steel and fairy type, and of course Mawile also got a mega evolution in the form of a Mega Mawile, and the interesting combination here what you can do is have Intimidate on the regular Mawile, so you can intimidate your opponent's Pokemon, a physical attacker, and then you will gain an opportunity to both Mega Evolve and also go for the Swords Dance, which makes Mega Mawile absurdly powerful. You got 105 physical attack, you double that with huge power, then you go for like Swords Dance, your attack is like way above 1000. This thing is just absurdly powerful. After Swords Dance, if you don't resist its attacks, you kind of just get destroyed by it. And of course speed is still a problem for Mawile, but it does have that Sucker Punch to kind of go make up for the speed. Of course with Sucker Punch you have all sorts of mind games, but still if you make the wrong prediction you're kind of screwed. You're definitely screwed, because then you're just gonna get destroyed by something like Play Rough or Iron Head, and even if you do resist those moves after Source Dance and simply after huge power, you are in definite trouble. Guaranteed that much. And Steel and Fairy typing, extremely nice defensively, and when you couple that with Intimidate, and basically just saying that with this typing, Mawile and Mega Mawile are going to be finding lots of opportunities to set up that Swords Dance, and one Swords Dance is really all you need, and then you just couple that with some decent prediction pans, and you can kind of just destroy everything. And then we got Mr. Mime, which is also a Psychic Fairy type. I think it is it's gonna be left in the shadow of God of War and Mega God of War, I kind of feel like. But still, I think it's gonna be kind of interesting in the baton passing chain. I've actually tried this out. I've been trying out a bit of baton passing in Gen 6. I don't really know what to think about it really, because I kind of feel like all the baton passing Pokemon kind of get destroyed by Aegislash, because it has that sacred sword that goes kind of just through your boosts, and then you have the priority Shadow Sneak with that, So you really have to be scared with Aegislash. So I don't really know how baton passing is gonna be doing in Gen 6, because when you're facing Aegislash, Aegislash is also gonna be just boosting up to like +6, and then it has a move that goes through all your defensive boosts, so that's kind of a problem. But I shouldn't be talking about baton passing, and yeah, so just disregard everything I just said. But yeah, I still think the most potential Mr. Mime has is in the baton pass chains, because obviously it has the soundproof ability, and now that it's part fairy type, it's going to be interesting to have a Pokemon that has dragon type immunity and that's soundproof, so it doesn't need to worry about those Parry songs and well, mostly just Parry song, and I guess Roar too, so it cannot get roared out. So definitely a still interesting Pokemon in the baton passing chain, but outside of that, I think it's gonna be left in the shadow of Gardevoir and Mega Gardevoir. And then we got Wigglytuff. It's normal fairy type. I think it got a special attack buff, but I think it's outclassed by Clefable and pretty much all the other specially defensive fairy types and bulky fairy type that we had at the beginning, pretty much. So I don't really know. It has the competitive ability, which is extremely situational, so yeah, I still don't really... Wigglytuff hasn't been good in the past, and I don't think it's really that good. Of course, it has a bunch of different resistances and immunities now, but, you know, it's still the same old Wigglytuff, which has never really been too good, and I don't think it still is. It's slightly better, but, you know, there are better options. And then, last but not least, we have Xerneas. And Xerneas, of course, is, you know, it has already been moved up to the Ubers. I don't think it was ever in the OU tier, really. But, yeah, it has the signature move called Geomancy, which is technically like, whatchamacallit, double butterfly dance, or what do you go, quiver dance. I still keep thinking about the Japanese name for some random reason. But it's like double quiver dance, but you have to charge up for the turn. I think first you use it, and then on the next turn you have to charge, and then at the end of the turn you will get +2 in your special attack, special defense, and speed, and that's definitely an interesting boosting move, to say the least. And coupled up with all of its great stats, it can definitely be using that. And when you couple that with the fact that in the realm of Ubers you have a bunch of dragons, and you have Xerneas with dragon immunity, it can be forcing some switches, thus getting up that Geomancy. And of course you have to be really scared with that move, because you have to charge up with it. But I still think with the great base stats of Xerneas, it will find opportunities to set it up. And well, I can't really say too much about Xerneas. I think Tony Flygon would be better at that, but I think Xerneas, at least when I was looking at the first usage stats in the Ubers, Pokebank Ubers, and I think on the regular Ubers too, Xerneas was the #1 used Pokemon there. I don't know if it's just all the hype, because it's a new fairy type legendary Pokemon, or is there actually some legitimate reasoning why it's being used so much. Perhaps that Geomancy is just really awesome boosting move. I haven't really tried that out myself, so perhaps if you have, let me know in the comments below. But on that note, I have gone through the list of all these fairy type Pokemon, gave my quick thoughts on it, and yeah, still on a little summary. So far I do really like the fairy types, and I think Game Freak did a great job. They didn't create too many of them, and they didn't give them too great base stats like they did with the dragons, so they have definitely thought this through. And I guess even Nintendo and the Pokemon Company are actually thinking that, hey, we shouldn't create like all these overpowered Pokemon. We should actually, you know, think about what we are creating. And so far, so good. I like the fairy types. They're bringing something new and fresh to the table, and they're not really broken, and they seem really balanced when it comes to the when it comes to the already existing typings that we have, all 17 of them, fairy type really seems to mesh up well in there, and I guess they are also now bringing some more offensive potential for the steel types and the poison types that in the past haven't been so good in the offensive side. That's what they also wanted to kind of compensate when it comes to fairy types, is that, you know, in the past, you know, steel and poison have been more defensive types. So now with the introduction of fairy types that are meant to take on the most overpowered type of them all, the dragons, they also wanted to kind of balance out, you know, those steel and poison types that, yeah, again, were more defensive but now have slightly more offensive potential. So it really meshes up well with all the existing types, I think. Like, I still don't really understand that, like, they have the dark type resistance and they are super effective against dark types. I still don't think that dark types needed any kind of nerf, but, you know, that's what we got going on. But at the same time, you know, they didn't create too many of them. They didn't really create too many overpowered fairy type moves. In fact, like, I think the best special attack you got is like Moonblast at 95, and on the physical side, the only option you got is Play Rough at 90. So again, as opposed to something like Dragon that has like Draco Meteor base 140, or I think it got nerfed by 10 in this gen, but still 130. And then on the physical side, you have Outrage 120. They really kept the fairy type moves at bay as well. They didn't create too many overpowered fairy type moves. They really were scared about creating a new type, so they kind of just had a nice clean start. They didn't want to go overboard with it, which is extremely nice, and I think it's good for the meta game. And on that note, I'm gonna end this random rambling on the fairy types. You can leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm possibly gonna be looking into fairy types move, maybe on the next episode or one of the next episodes. Just go through and see, like, what options do we actually have on the attacking side and on the support side when it comes to fairy types, because I didn't really get to talk about those fairy type attacks and moves in general too much. So perhaps I could do that, or perhaps I could do something different. And again, you are free to suggest a future topic that I could talk about. Also, I would kind of like to do more of those MPX episodes, but those take a lot of editing time and time in general. A lot of looking into, a lot of research and stuff like that. So recently I've been just really busy, so I haven't been able to do those episodes. Although I would really like to do them, and people really seem to like them. I guess mostly because I do put a lot of effort into them, and it shows, and you guys seem to like that. So I will try my best to do them, but lately it's just way too busy with everything, school and life and stuff like that. So haven't had as much time as I would have liked to, but I still do like to keep this series going on. So feel free to leave your support in the comment section below. Tell me what you want to see, and I will take it into consideration like I've done in the past. So thank you so much for watching another episode of CC. Until next time, this is Spade, signing out. Peace!